Mike and Pat back at Capital District Sport and Fitness, and now we're going to talk about how some of that hip impingement may play into your squatting, or talk about more so why you notice that impingement only when you are squatting. So Pat is going to get set up in the squat rack, and just understand like everybody's going to have different hip anatomy, we're going to have different mobility deficits, and so everybody's squat isn't going to look the same. But there's a few key things that we want to be looking at. And Pat's starting with the back squat here, which is a more common variation. And he's going to go through a few reps right now. And a couple of things you'll often see, especially if you are having some pain in the front of that hip, is that while you squat down, it's almost going to look like your hips are dumping back and your torso is dumping forward. Now this may be because you have either, Pat, we can stand back up, you either have a lack of mobility in the hip, maybe it's a lack of mobility in the ankle, or maybe it's a hard time with you controlling kind of your rib cage and your pelvis to keep your core and spine in a good position. So Pat's going to rack it in right here. And now if you're having that hip pain and your squat just feels awkward, the first modification we're going to make is switching to a front load. So Pat's here, he's now going to front rack the bar, and what this is going to do before we even squat down is because the load is now shifted more to the front of your body, you're going to have a chance to kind of engage the abs more, keep this kind of pelvis and rib cage position a little bit more controlled and stacked on top of each other. That way when we squat down, Pat's going to show you, we don't have that kind of leaning forward and we stay more vertical from the shoulders down to the hips, and then we can push and stand up here. Now the second modification we may need to make is going a little bit wider with your feet and also out-toeing slightly with the feet. This is then going to give the hips more room to move in the socket. So if you're someone who maybe has good control over the pelvis and the rib cage, but lacks true hip rotation, and hip rotation that you can control, this out toe Pat's going to show you may give you a chance to be able to squat a little bit deeper. Just think now your hips only have to rotate kind of back to a neutral position, which go instead of going farther than they should. We're going to push and stand through the heels right now, and let's rack it in right here, Pat. The last modification we may make is just shortening the range of motion. So if you have a decreased hip flexion range of motion, it may be harder to get down to that bottom of the squat position while keeping your spine and hips in a good spot, and kind of getting to these less than optimal positions may cause some of that impingement and pinching in your hip. So all Pat's going to do now is use the box as a guide to shorten that range of motion. And now hopefully we can kind of find a range that his body has, that he can control, that we'll be able to squat through and hopefully stay asymptomatic and pain-free through this shortened range. So we can and remember guys, everybody has different anatomy in their hips and different mobility, so you can't expect all squats to look the same or have to be the same. Like we all don't have to be toes straight forward, shoulder width with the bar on our back. We may need to make slight modifications to keep you healthy over the long run, continue to train your squat, and continue to get your lower body stronger. So remember, don't be afraid to maybe try a front load, or maybe limit your range of motion slightly, or adjust your foot position to be able to train the muscles you want and stay healthy over time.